Okay, question number 5. Which sentence best shows how Fortunato advances the plot of the Cask of Amontillado? You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy as once I was. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another less spacious. He, yes, the Amontillado. Or, but let us proceed to the Amontillado. Question number 6. Which line from the story reveals Montresor's true intentions in his dealings with Fortunato? For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. Or, but you should use all proper caution. Question number 7. How does the author create a sense of tension? By slowing the pace with detailed descriptions, by describing Fortunato's good health, poor health, by using a flashback to show the men's strong friendship, or by withholding Montresor's intentions. Question number 8. Part A. Read these sentences from the Cask of Amontillado. Enough, he said. This cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, true, I replied. Which literary technique is employed in these sentences? Foreshadowing, withholding information, pacing, or humor? And then part B, why does the author use this technique? A, to build suspense, B, to show realism, C, to create a humorous tone, and D, to produce surprise. Question number 9. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low, moaning cry from the depth of the recess. There was then a long and obstinate silence. How does the author create surprise in these sentences? By foreshadowing what will happen to Montresor, by revealing shocking information about Montresor's cask, by flashing back to Fortunato drinking the wine, or by withholding information about Fortunato's condition. Okay, question number 10. Has us reading this excerpt from the autobiography of Ben Franklin. My elder brothers were all put apprentices to different trades. I was put to the grammar school at 8 years of age, my father intending to devote me, as the tithe of his sons, to the service of the church. My early readiness in learning to read, which must have been very early, as I do not remember when I could not read, and the opinion of all his friends that I should certainly make a good scholar, encouraged him in this purpose of his. My uncle Benjamin, too, approved of it, and supposed to give me all his shorthand volumes of sermons. I suppose as a stock to set up with if I would learn his character. I continued, however, at the grammar school not quite 1 year, though in that time I had risen gradually from the middle of the class of that year to be the head of it, and farther was removed into the next class above it, in order to go with that into the third at the end of the year. All right, so question number 10 here. What effect does the phrase, my father intending to devote me as the tithe of his sons to the service of the church, have on the meaning of this passage? It demonstrates the importance of the church. It proves that he is smarter than his brothers. It implies he has no choice in the career he will have. Or it explains that at least one son must join the church. Part B. How does the phrase, my father intending to devote me as the tithe of his sons to the service of the church, contribute to the passage's tone? It offers a sense of obligation, provides a sense of tradition, it creates a sense of hopefulness, or it adds a touch of humor. Question number 11. All right. My brother had in 1720 or 1721 begun to print a newspaper. It was the second that appeared in America and was called the New England Courant. The only one before it was the Boston Newsletter. I remember his being dissuaded by some of his friends from the undertaking as not likely to succeed, one newspaper being, in their judgment, enough for America. At this time, in 1771, there are not less than 5 and 20. He went on, however, with the undertaking, and after having worked in composing the types and printing off the sheets, I was employed to carry the papers through the streets to the customers. He had some ingenious men among his friends who amused themselves by writing little pieces for this paper, which gained it credit and made it more in demand, and these gentlemen often visited us. Hearing their conversations and their accounts of the approbation their papers were received with, I was excited to try my hand among them, but being still a boy, and suspecting that my brother would object to printing anything of mine in his paper if he knew it to be mine, I contrived to disguise my hand, and writing an anonymous paper, I put it in at night under the door of the printing house. It was found in the morning and communicated to his writing friends when they called in as usual. They read it, commented on it in my hearing, and I had the exquisite pleasure of finding it met with their approbation, and that in their different guesses at the author, none were named but men of some character among us for learning and ingenuity. I suppose now that I was rather lucky in my judges, and that perhaps they were not really so very good ones as I had then esteemed them. Encouraged, however, by this, I wrote and conveyed in the same way to the press several more papers, which were equally approved, and I kept my secret till my small fund of cents for such performances was pretty well exhausted, and then I discovered it, when I began to be considered a little more by my brother's acquaintance, and in a manner that did not quite please him, as he thought, probably with reason, that it tended to make me too vain. And perhaps that might be one occasion of the differences that we began to have about this time. Though a brother, he considered himself as my master, and me as his apprentice, and accordingly expected the same services from me as he would have from another, while I thought he demeaned me too much in some he required of me, who from a brother expected more indulgence. Our disputes were often brought up before our father, and I fancy I was either generally in the right, or else a better pleader, because the judgment was generally in my favor. My brother was passionate, and he had often beaten me, which I took extremely amiss, and thinking my apprenticeship was very tedious, I was continually wishing for some opportunity of shortening it, when at length offered in a manner unexpected. Okay. Read this text from paragraph 2. He had some ingenious men among his friends who amused themselves by writing little pieces for this paper, which gained a credit and made it more in demand, and these gentlemen often visited us. How does the word ingenious contribute to this passage? It develops characters within the passage. It illustrates the inner motivations of a character. It clarifies a complex idea. Or it makes the tone more professional.